David's here. So plenty of times I get asked, how can in SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio, can I debug this procedure that I've created, the store procedure, using SSMS? I don't see it here in my context menu. I see, scripted as alter to, create to, blah, blah, blah. I say, don't worry about that. Do it in Visual Studio. I'm going to show you how now. So just go to Visual Studio. Now I'm going to 2019 because currently this doesn't work in 2022, but it is a bug reported to Microsoft and I believe they're working on it. So I bet by the time you watch this video, it'll be working in 2022. But in 2019, which is the same as 2022, you go to Tools, SQL Server, New Query. Now here under Server Name, you're going to paste in the same one that you use to connect to the database. It doesn't matter if it's SQL Server Authentication or Active Directory Authentication. And just paste that right there into server name and pick your database. In my case, I'm going to use the Microsoft Northwind example database that I've created an additional store procedure inside of, and click Connect. Now here, all you have to do is put your exec statement. If you're not sure how to put one together, in 2 seconds it'll do it for you in SSMS. So right click on your procedure, go to Script Store Procedure As, and select Execute to New Query Window, and you can just copy that and paste it into your query. And you're going to want to set a breakpoint right on the execute line. Now you can go to Debug. So now you're probably expecting, if you're a Visual Studio user, to go up here and you'll see Debug. But it's tricky. The exact same icon is here on the line on the top left. Just above this text on the top left, there's a button that looks almost the same, and it also has a little drop down button. And instead of Execute, you'll choose Execute with Debug. Or just hit Alt F5 when your cursor's on the query. Here we go. Begin the waiting game. Hopefully your computer is faster than mine. There we go. So if you're familiar with debugging C# applications, it's much the same. You hit F10 or F11. F10 is step over, F11 is step into. Once you get to your breakpoint, you're going to hit F11, which is to step in. And this is where the current bug with Visual Studio 22, which is probably fixed now, depending on when you're watching this, is it doesn't step in, it steps over. So that's why I'm in 2019. Anyways, continue to step in, F10, F10. I've got a while loop here, and I've got some variables declared. This is what I want to show you. If I hover my mouse over the variables, I could see there are counters here, a couple of variables. I can right-click on that. I can do Edit Value and change the value of my counter, for example, from 10249 to 10248. Now if I hover, it says 1028. If I right click on what's come up as hover, that's how I changed it. I could add a watch to that so that as I step through it, that value will change. For example, if I F10 down here and step in, you can see it just changed down here from 10248 to 10249. Jump up again if you keep going. Now, one thing to keep in mind is just because there's a feature in Visual Studio doesn't mean it's available to SQL scripts. So if I click on make a breakpoint, right click on that breakpoint, choose conditions, try to make a conditional breakpoint. As soon as you hit it, it doesn't matter if you use SQL syntax or C# syntax, it's going to say conditional breakpoints are not supported when debugging SQL. I hope that's a feature that gets added soon because it would be really handy. However, you could define in your procedure, a variable that says, do this when you have reached that. You can create an if statement that only gets entered when a value is at a certain point, and then you could put a breakpoint inside that if statement. It'll get in that if statement when it reaches that value. In my case, I put a breakpoint on counter and I'm hitting F5. It's never getting in that if statement. Here's a good purpose of troubleshooting. I noticed the price never gets set. It's always 13 because I'm missing a where clause. So by debugging, I was able to determine that I needed to add a where clause. You can make corrections to your procedure, and then up in the top left, there's an Update Database button. You can click that, and it will prepare to create an update script. Now what's interesting is if you look at the script that you just edited, it says create procedure, but if you look at the pop-up, it says alter procedure. Click generate script or update database. Usually you want to hit generate script so you can see what it's doing. It's created a script for you in Sql Command Mode, and it actually tells you you must enable Command Mode if you want to execute this in SSMS. I'm just going to scroll down. You can see alter the procedure, and it's adding the where clause here. So if I was to copy this and try to run it in SSMS instead of in Visual Studio, you'll notice it's underlined in red. Things don't look quite right. You need to go to the query menu. If the query menu doesn't show up, you got to go to options and add it to your drop down depending on what version of SSMS. It might be easier to find. If you have any questions on it, drop them in the comments. I could actually walk you through that too. Anyways, once you have the query menu, Sql Command Mode will be there as well. Click that. As you notice, everything goes gray. Then you can hit F5 and run it. Back in Visual Studio, if you just want to do that, if you're already in the script here, you should be able to go up in the top left and either execute or execute with Debugger. I'm going to do execute. As you can see, the update was completed. And now you might want to go back and debug it again. I recommend you close this out since it's going to, it's a file. So you could save it, add to source control. Do that. When you're done, close it out and just go back to your execute statement so you can step into the latest version of the procedure, which is now changed on the database. So I go up here and go to execute with Debugger. As you keep stepping through it, you'll notice that the price 16 becomes 8. So the values are changing, which means it is using the newer code. And as you can see on the breakpoint in the word end, only the last 3 letters are highlighted in yellow. This is an indication that the code you're looking at does not match the code that's being executed. You can see this sometimes in C# as well. It's a thing that carries over here. So it begs the question, how do we refresh this? How do I debug the code and see the current version? You could try different things, resetting the cache, refreshing the procedure in your Object Explorer. But to me, what's worked, and I'd love to hear in the comments if you find something better, is just to close Visual Studio and reopen it. Go new query again, and I'll just execute that. And here we go again. Put my breakpoint back, hit our execute with Debugger, hit F5, hit F11, and now we're in there. You can see the where clause. These steps to refresh the database is just because we went the script mode. If you let Visual Studio do the update, then you don't have to do anything fancy to get it to refresh correctly. I'll give you an example. Let's say you had something in here like price equals price plus 1. We'll add this and then remove it. So let's say set price equal to price plus 1. Let's say I wanted that in there. Okay, so all I got to do is click update, and instead of generate script, I just click update database. I'm not a fan of this, but some people like it. All right, I'm going to close this file. Let's step into this again, execute with Debugger, F5, F11 on the execute statement, and then F10 into it. And as you can see, the new statement is there. So that's always an option too. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Now, just for full disclosure, I know you're here to watch me debug, not to copy this procedure, but if you wanted this procedure, you wouldn't return total price here. You'd come up here to the stored procedure, and you'd add an output parameter like this. Results or something like that. Money type, and you type the word output. Because typically the return from a stored procedure is just success or failure, whereas the output parameter would be what you want to return if it's a scalar stored procedure. Scalar just means returning a single value and not a table. Now, there is a couple of quick last things I could show you as far as debugging in here. There's not a whole lot, but if you right-click anywhere in the window, you can change the results to be text, grid, or file, just like you could in SQL Server Management Studio SSMS. Another thing is you got your execution settings. You can go in here and choose query options and set up your Visual Studio to where you can adjust things like row count or no count and set these type of settings that would occur on every query execution so that you don't have to put them in your code. For instance, over here where I executed the stored procedure, I could have put no count on. I could have also put that inside the procedure. But if that's something that you wanted to have in every execution, you could do that in your Visual Studio settings. We're going to execution settings, query options, and then either in the general or advanced tab. Your results to grid settings has some choices here as well. These are all debugging settings, but it's up to you whether you use them or not. Well, hopefully this video was helpful. There's more that could be said to debugging SQL with Visual Studio, but this is the basics to get you into it, and we're all looking forward to, and hopefully by the time you watch this, Visual Studio 2022 accommodating this feature. Have a wonderful day, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.